A generation later, slavery touched down in the newly colonized America. And the people there to usher it in, and more important, to use it to build this new country, were two men, each of whom saw himself as a similar kind of do-gooder. Their names, John Cotton and Richard Mather. About Cotton and Mather, they were Puritans. About Puritans, they were English Protestants who beloved the Reformation of the Church of England, but was basically watering down Christianity, and he sought to regulate it to keep it more disciplined and rigid. So these two men at different times traveled across the Atlantic in search of a new land, which would become Boston, where they could escape English persecution and preach their version, a pure version of Christianity. They landed in America after treacherous trips, especially Richard Mather, whose ship sailed into a storm in 1635 and almost collided with a massive rock in the ocean. Mather, of course, saw a survival of this journey to America as a miracle and became even more devoted to God. Amen. Both men were ministers. They built churches in Massachusetts, but more importantly, they built systems. The church wasn't just a place of worship. The church was a place of power and influence. And in this new land, John Cotton and Richard Mather had a whole lot of power and influence. And the first thing they did to spread the Puritan way was to find other people who were also like-minded. And with those like-minded folks, they created schools to enforce higher education skewed toward their way of thinking. What school do you think was the first to get the Puritan touch? This is a trick question, because the answer is the very first university in all of America. Ever remember, this society is all brand new, and the very first university in America ever was Harvard University. But a tricky thing happens with the opening of Harvard, a thing that directly connects to Zora and the curse and the climate theories and everything we've talked about thus far. See, Cotton and Mather were students of Aristotle. And Aristotle, though held up as one of the greatest Greek philosophers of all time, famous for things we'll be not discussing here because this is not a history book, believes something else he's not nearly as famous for. And that's the belief in human hierarchy. Aristotle believed that Greeks were superior to non-Greeks. John Cotton and Richard Mather took Aristotle's idea because they too were followers and flipped it into a new equation, substituting Puritan for Greek. And because of their miraculous journeys across the raging ocean, especially Richard Mather's, they believed they were chosen people, special in the eyes of God, Puritan superiority. And according to Puritans, they were better than, number one, Native Americans. Number two, Anglican English, people who weren't Puritans. Number three, everyone else who wasn't a Puritan. And of course, number four, especially the African people. And guess what? They did according to the development of Harvard. They made it so that Greek and Latin texts could not be disputed. Oh no. Which meant Aristotle, a man who believed in human hierarchy and used climate to justify which humans were better, could not be disputed, and instead had to be taken as biblical truth. And just like that, the groundwork was laid not only for slavery to be justified, but for it to be justified for a long time. So because it was woven into the religious and educational systems of America, all that was needed to complete this oppressive puzzle was, of course, slaves.